Hello, and welcome to Comcast Connects. My name is Gloria Cardenas Cudilla. I am your hostess. You know, there are a lot of issues in our communities. There are good and there's bad, but more often we hear about the bad. And certainly they need attention so that we can address them. But there are also a lot of great things going on in our community and a lot of great people making some incredible differences, not only here in our neighborhoods, but also in our city, our county, and our state, and also our country. But even that, we even go further. Many of our people that live in this community are servicing people internationally. And this is what we're going to talk about today in this segment. But before we start our interview with my guest today, I want to thank Comcast, the Comcast Cable Company, for giving us this opportunity to be here with you. I want to thank Janice Keene, who is our studio manager, my husband Frank, who operates cameras, and Barbara Stucker, who decorates for us. And it is a team effort, and that's how usually things get done. My first guest today is David Hale. And David, you might know David from the political scene. That's how he and I met. But he also has an amazing, amazing missions trip that he's going to be talking about. Not only trips that he's done, but these mission trips that he works so diligently with serving people in Iraq. So join me in welcoming David Hale. David, welcome.
Thank you.
Good to have you.
Glad to be here, Gloria.
It's so good to see you. It's been a while, huh?
Too. Yep.
Now, you and I met, as I told our audience, a few years back, and mostly we've been out in the community trying to make a little bit of a difference in the political arena in our communities. But a lot of people don't know that you have a medical background. But first of all, tell us a little bit about you and then what you're doing.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we met back when you were on the Park District Board, and then I believe you moved to the school board after that. Yeah, I ran for Congress against Adam Kinzinger in the primary, and I was unsuccessful. And I was a nurse, a clinical nurse, bedside nurse, for 8 years in an emergency room. And prior to that, I was in the aviation business and private pilot. And then after nursing, which I still participate in, except as a clinical analyst with a major software vendor, and I go around and configure computer systems now for doctors and nurses around the country. But I'm involved with a group called LaCima World Missions and DVM DART. And LaCima World Missions is well, they're both humanitarian sides, but LaCima World Missions is the nonprofit side and DVM DART is the team side. And so LaCima World Missions, it is a religiously based or oriented group, Christian oriented, and DVM DART is secular.
Okay.
And they team up and they send teams into places where nobody will go. And so when the UN pulls out, when UNICEF pulls out, when USAID pulls out, which they all pulled out of Iraq in the Erbil area where we went, they will send a team in with as much money as possible to accomplish a humanitarian aid mission. And they don't overtly promote the Bible, although we did hand Bibles out at this last one to the Christians who have been hunted by ISIS in northern Iraq. As you know, that's been quite the crisis over there as of late.
Yes.
So that's a little bit about my background and a little bit about the trip that I went on back in September.
So when you go to Iraq and you go on your missions trip, Dave, what exactly do you do? I mean, you sent me some amazing pictures of kids, families that are just needing, not only the physical side of care, but also they need love. I mean, and so tell us about some of the things that you've been doing and some of the things you hope to do in the next trip.
My role on this particular mission was I was the chief medical officer or medic. They called me the medical officer, but that would usually be reserved for a doctor. We didn't have a doctor on this trip. We had me, registered nurse, and so I took care of the team medical needs if we needed any. And then the other part was to take care of medical needs of some of the internally displaced peoples. So we visited 5 camps. What we would do is we would go and we would find a camp, we would recon the camp, see what kind of needs were needed, see what was needed, And then we would bring a doctor in from in-country. And I would do a triage of the children. We focused mainly on children because the two doctors we had were both pediatricians. And so I would triage these children and then send them in to see the doctor, and the doctor would then prescribe a medication. Over there, you don't need a prescription, but it's wise to have a doctor say, well, you need it for this.
Of course.
And then we would send another team that was with us, two members of our team, down to a pharmacy. We always traveled in teams in the area because it was pretty dangerous.
Well, sure.
And we'd send them down to a local pharmacy, and they would find the medications, bring them back, and give them to the patient, to the children's parents. And so we did this at 5 different camps. Now these camps are in very bad shape. These are people who fled, literally were fleeing. As they were fleeing, their family members are being shot down by ISIS. We talked to a number of refugees, internally displaced people, who gave us similar stories. Their homes were burned behind them, looted, booby-trapped. And so even though the U.S. has participated in a bombing campaign to help push ISIS back from Erbil, these folks don't have homes to go back to. And if they do have homes, they're likely booby-trapped. And the area that they're all in is a province known as Kurdistan. And the Kurds are pretty much in control of the area. And they've prohibited folks from going back to these villages and back to these towns that they've been driven from. Even though ISIS might be gone, they either don't have a home or it's booby-trapped. So they end up in these refugee camps. And we discovered while we were there that USAID had left, the UN had left, UNICEF had left, all the major aid organizations had left. And so there was no assistance coming in for these folks. So whatever assistance that they could get was actually being raised in the local Erbil community. In the province we were in, Kurdistan, within Kurdistan there's Erbil, which is the capital of Kurdistan. And then within Erbil, there's Ankawa. That's the Christian kind of side of the city. And that's where most of these refugees were, because most of these refugees were Christians. So we ended up spending about $16,000 on medications and another probably $20,000 on food, and then the rest of the money on other incidentals that all went to the refugees. We even bought one child some glasses. And so, a lot of the disease that we saw were childhood type diseases, but a lot of the disease was a byproduct of what had been happening to them.
Sure.
Serious gastrointestinal issues, dehydration issues, beginning some starvation issues. We saw chickenpox, measles, some trauma, not much. Most of the trauma that had happened was outside of the city, and those folks that are outside of the city are living on highways. They're living out in the open desert. So the big need that they have now coming up in this for the fall, for the winter, is that in the northern Iraq area, it's almost a similar winter that we will have here in Rockford.
So that northern area is pretty much where you were?
Yes, I was in northern Iraq.
Okay.
So I was in Erbil, and Erbil is just outside of Mosul, and Mosul had been overrun by ISIS, and they had all come in from Syria. And actually, when we were there, ISIS was about 20 miles outside of the city, and there was a lot of fighting going on.
And so you were saying in that northern part is pretty similar to the temperatures and everything that we have here this time of year. So with our cold upon us, then that's a big issue over there right now then too.
Well, these folks fled with essentially the clothes on their backs. Some of them had some money in the bank, inaccessible. So with just the clothes on their backs in the summertime, which is when they fled, a lot of them came in shorts and t-shirts. And so now that winter is coming, coats will be a big ordeal. Another problem is a lot of them ended up with tents. Heating up these tents, what happens is they'll have a space heater that has been donated from somebody. And these space heaters cause fires. And there's already been fires over there that have killed whole families
sure.
in these refugee camps.
Sure.
So the needs are just huge. There's 1.2 million internally displaced peoples as a result of the war with ISIS. Most of them are Christian. A lot of them are Yazidi. And a lot of them are Shia Muslim too, because ISIS is Sunni.
Dave, we have about 2.5 minutes, and I was just wondering if you could tell us how our audience can participate. How can they help? I mean, you're going to be going pretty soon, in a few weeks, and but there's always a need for donations.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about that before our time runs out?
Yeah, this next mission I will not be participating in. Reason why is, in order to go on these missions, we have to pay all of our own way. And my mission took about $4,000 and it drained me.
Oh, of course.
And so I won't be going on this mission, but we do have our partnership going, Lacima World Missions and DVM DART. And they're going with a dental doctor, an assistant, a security person, and on the ground they will hire security people and they'll hire an interpreter.
Okay.
The need this time is going to be for money. Huge amounts of money, because it's hard to carry coats over there unless we can get a freebie from UPS to ship a cargo full of coats over there. It would be impossible to carry coats. You're allowed 2 bags. So what we need is money in order to buy coats while we're over there. We also need money to buy tourniquets. The trauma that's happening within the Kurdish army, they are very poorly equipped, especially for medical items, and they don't even have tourniquets during traumas. So
we have about a minute left. Can you tell us how people can make a donation? I mean, a website, how they can communicate with you or somebody so that they can get more information, whether it's by phone or email. Can you give us that information?
Sure.
And we'll put it up on the screen for you.
You can contact me at davidhalelrn@gmail.com.
Okay.
You can also donate if you go to Lacima World Missions. Lacima is spelled LACIMA WORLDMISSIONS.org.
Okay.
LacimaWorldMissions.org. And there's a donation page that you can go and donate to right there. They're a nonprofit, fully recognized nonprofit organization.
Well, Dave, I'll tell you, this has been an eye-opener for me, because a lot of times on the news we see the gentlemen, well, they're not gentlemen, I guess, all these terrorists or whatever, with their machine guns and all their weapons, but we forget about the children and the people that have been affected. Would you we only have a few seconds left, would you take a moment and share with our audience why this is important to each and every one of us?
Because America rises to the needs of those who need. That's why. We wore our American patches on our hats when we were out with the refugees, internally displaced peoples. We wouldn't wear them outside of those camps because we'd be easily identified by any kind of insurgency. We believe Americans arise when people are in need. And this is people in need, severely in need. Mainly Christians, but many Muslims too. Our teams will be going to Nkawa, the Nkawa province. But if we had enough money, we would take care of all 1.2 million people.
And I think a lot of us Americans feel that way, not only for the people in other countries, but here as well. And a lot of times it's just basically becoming informed, and that's why we're here at Comcast, to inform the public what our neighbors are doing, what our fellow citizens here in Rockford are doing, and we appreciate the work that you're doing, and appreciate. I know it's not an easy thing to do, but it's a commitment that the rest of us do respect and thank you for. Dave, we are going to just hopefully have you come back in the future and tell us how things are going. And I sure do appreciate your being here with us today and sharing this information.
Thank you
and
much.
taking the time. All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
And thank you for joining us on this segment of Comcast Connects. Remember, if you have some information you'd like to share with our general public about your not-for-profit organization's project, events, or services, just give me a call on my cell, 815-289-5970, and we'll take it from there. Thank you again, and have a great, great day. Bye-bye.